All right.
Hey,
Hello.
how are you this evening?
I'm good. I went for sushi after work. So that was fun. And then I came home and laid in bed until I had to get ready for this. So, yeah.
So, obviously, everybody, welcome to Chaps Darkside. A wonderful Thursday night as things are starting to get more damp and cool out there. I'm suffering what do you want to call it? Go from warm weather to cold weather. Your body feels like it's been shrink wrapped and doused in liquid nitrogen.
That's a
Every
great description.
every single joint is swelling and I got the sniffles and all that stuff. So it should be absolutely fantastic for tonight's show. Me coughing and sniffing.
Yeah.
So we're tonight. I guess we're doing greatest stories. It's all going to be very impromptu. I think you researched a bunch of pictures of
Yeah.
places. We had something, and I'll just have to make shit up as I go along.
Just lie. No one would know any different.
It's totally going to be a lie. Look, I mean, obviously, we've a little recent activity. We investigated the Perth jail.
I agree, Steve. If I wasn't pregnant, I would also still be using mine.
Perth jail, which was dirty, disgusting,
Yes.
and dangerous. I mean, metal spikes everywhere, lead paint falling down everywhere. Uh, just absolutely gross. Hasn't been touched in 30 years. And bats.
Yes.
Which Sandy found out and wasn't all that pleased about. But unfortunately, nothing happened while we were there.
No.
And really, the audio has come up pretty clean, except for one thing that we don't have video backup for, that we may just produce into this odd noise that happened.
Yeah, so like the way the paints are chipped, like that's the whole jail. Like the whole jail is basically falling apart. Now it's really cool, but I think what we noticed, and like a lot of us noticed, even Shani said the same thing. Sometimes we go on investigations and we're like, this feels weird. Like obviously, like I can't tell there's something wrong, but something feels eerie. She went as far as saying that it could be like a daycare with how calm the vibes were in this jail.
Yeah.
Like you didn't feel scared. Definitely dangerous, especially being, like I'm almost in my third trimester. So I was a little anxious when it came to like going up and downstairs, getting tired. But, just the actual jail itself did not come across as like uncomfortable or feeling on edge. Like I felt safe the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, it was certainly the residential and office section and all that was inert. And the jail itself, you're right, did feel pretty calm. It was quiet for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was very quiet. Like there wasn't any part where I'm like, I need to get out of here. Like I remember, like I'll talk about it later when we talk about the rig now, but like I remember like even just being alone in a jail cell in the rig now, I felt so uncomfortable. Like I felt so on edge. And I don't know if it's just like spooky vibes, you've got your cortisol levels up and your hyperarousal, but being inside the Perth jail, I was like, this, I just feel like I'm in like a really old house.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously it's a different thing for everybody. It was funny. The owner and I never actually conversed. I sent him some money. He sent me a picture of where the keys were going to be. And then we got there and the keys weren't there.
And I saved the day because I found the realtor on Remax or whatever website. And I got Dave to call them and have a wonderful conversation with the real estate agent to be like, hey, your man is, not pay. We've paid him money. What's the code? We figured it out. So.
And the hotel, we got the hotel, which was supposed to have 2 beds per room. And the room that Sandy and I were sharing with John only had 1 bed. Right.
It's a good thing John went home. Otherwise, it
might have gotten uncomfortable. I might have gotten very comfortable. They did advertise king size beds, and they were doubles.
Yeah, I mean, I shared a bed with Abby, and that was okay. She got the bed alone, so I was a little jealous of her. But you know what? It was beds weren't uncomfortable.
Well, they're all right.
Yeah, they were okay. You know.
So if you're in Perth, you can go stay at the Colonial Inn.
Brandon's parents actually told me they've stayed there before as well. So
it was okay. It was clean.
But what I am shocked about is how busy Perth is.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, when I went there in several years ago now, I was in grade 12 for victory lap of high school. I went for a funeral and there was no one there. Whereas this, you can't even cross this, you can't even drive without people just walking in front of you.
A town of 6,000 people, and
they're all there.
Very, very vintage looking place. I would highly recommend checking out Perth. You know what? And that's that, right? We've got an investigation in Resi coming up in Brighton. Very nice family there that's invited us to come out, and we're going to do that. That will probably be the end of our calendar year.
I'm working on some local ones in the Northumberland County. I'm not going to speak too much on them because they're not confirmed. But so there's a potential we can probably squeeze 2 local ones before then, just given the holidays. But yeah, I mean, I'd say Brighton will probably be one of the last ones. And then I'd say, unless it's local, I probably won't be going on any and next year I'll be going on some as long as they're local. Like I can't do any trips or anything with a
we're obviously we're headed down to Indiana in May.
Very jealous of that. Wish we could postpone our anniversary to the year later. Just so you know.
Too bad. And then obviously, well, what am I saying? Sandy and I will probably end up meeting up with the paranormal team in Nashville when we go in April. So that's that, right? So let's get on to things here because the people that are watching us.
Yes, we promise we're talking about best stories here. So we're gonna start from some older ones. Thank you, Steve. He's asking around for in Niagara. That would be great.
That's what we want.
So I won't be able to speak on probably the first half of these because I was a toddler during these, but I'll be able to talk on the latter half. So, all right. So the first one I have brought up is the Carlton Place investigation.
Well, this is the Carlton Place Hotel. I believe it was owned by bikers for a little while, and it was owned by kind of like the mafia for a little while. It goes back to like the 1880s. And it was great. We had the whole place. And I know that we obviously our audio samples aren't good enough to put over here. This is the one investigation. If you look it up on YouTube, there's 2 of them. There's a redo. On the redo, we had it where we just happened to, when we have monitoring cameras, our security cameras, we'll set them up. And I think this was just one that we set up in a place that was very innocuous. It was a dining room. And it's so far to this day, the only piece of video evidence we've ever got. That's why when people say they've got tons of video evidence, I do tend to think they're full of shit. But we actually got an apparition, for a better term, standing up, turning, and then dropping back into the ground.
Do you have the clip of that?
Not easily inaccessible.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. They're all in an external drive.
Okay, but it's not on YouTube or anything?
I believe if you look up the Carlton Place Hotel and the redo, it'll be on there.
Because I can probably pull a clip of it, like a screen recording for the next podcast.
No, it's the Carlton Place. Well, it used to be called the Carlton Place Heritage Inn, the Carlton Place Hotel. It's been almost 20 years. Actually, it has been 20 years since I've been there. I know that the first time we were there too, we had all-female team in the basement down in the cooler area, and got one of the most interesting audio. Again, we got, which is they're like, so you asked the standard questions, and the ladies asked, why are you here? And we got, I'm here collecting dust. So that was pretty interesting. Obviously, back in those days, pictures of orbs and that I wouldn't say part and parcel of things, but they were there. And if you see the video, we have a locked off room where we have one of our cameras. And it was on a floating stabilizer. They recorded back in those days, and everything was taped down. We duct taped all the cables and all that noise. We triple. And then out of nowhere in this isolated room, and this is on video. Yep. Then that was it. Our camera, which was pointed at the room, spun around and faced the mirror. And this is in a room where the door was taped shut and the cable lines were all secured. So it was kind of interesting. Look, would I say that there was proof of anything? No, but it was probably one of the first places that we investigated. We actually had those spooky sensations. We did go back there. I know we hosted I was a keynote speaker at a little paranormal dinner evening, which was basically me as an investigator and about 6 psychics. So I was getting lots of bum darts, the whole I'm evil look from a whole room full of people telling tarot cards.
You are evil.
I know that. So what's the next place?
The Capitol Theater. Which Capitol Theater is this, by the way? Because there's about 100 of them.
30 of them, yeah. This is a Capitol Theater in Chatham, Chatham, Ontario.
Okay, Chatham-Kent district.
Yeah.
All right.
Which surprisingly is an incredibly long drive.
Yes, it is so far away. Yeah,
it's really weird because like London's only like 2 hours, but it feels like about 10 hours past London. Really great place. We hosted a number of Paranormal 101s. I got to talk in front of a couple hundred people. I know that there you Ron. Let's see. This I swear to God, it was cursed. This one. I remember as I was doing the 101, a lady came in just trashed to the gills. Right, we were in the lower level. I would like to start it off by saying somebody stole one of our video cameras, some of our audio equipment, and a bunch of batteries for our cameras. Just throwing that out there. That was the beginning of the curse. Everything else was good, but a lady fell down 2 flights of stairs and slapped her head onto the concrete floor just at the doors where I was giving the seminar.
You probably could have just packed things up and left at that point.
Right there and then, right? So we had, I believe it was ambulance attendants down there. Like, this is the beginning of this. And I'm thinking, cool, we could actually catch the moment when your body and your spirit disincorporates, right? Maybe there's a noise. Maybe I've already got Sandy, I can tell you, written in an envelope. When I die, I want audio around. I want
videotape me, please.
Catch whatever it is, because if you can get that, who's gonna talk to you more than I would? And I'm gonna talk about, which I probably wouldn't talk about on air here, except for everybody here knows me already. So that night, I remember we were upstairs in the catwalks, which are just insanely high above the stage, and I believe it was Sandy got scratched down the back of her neck. She was fine. Sandy. Sandy's not a reactive person. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you got to prod her to know that she's awake or alive. I've never had an investigation where she gets freaked out. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden there was this terrible line going down her neck, down to her shoulder, which was kind of cool for me. Mm-hmm. Lots of little bits of audio and lots of things being tossed around. Really interesting and ornate place to do. It's got the little ornate, the guys from the Muppets mm-hmm. that sit up there. What is that called?
Like the banister?
No, you don't sit in a banister.
Well, you can, depending on how it's positioned.
Right. So anyway, they had all that. Very, very, very nice place. I'd like to go back, but for some reason they didn't like us. There's a couple theaters down there that the Imperial that we did down in Sarnia, which I don't. Imperial's not in your list.
Yeah.
They didn't like us because they had it where there was used to be a bank, and we didn't get any evidence of the bankers that I think if you fight about money, they got all upset. And they were actually very, very upset that we didn't get that. It was our fault. That's one of the horror stories of being a paranormal investigator is going and investigating somebody's claims.
Look at Robert's comment. Real people are a bigger problem than ghosts. Whether they're destructive to the property while you're there or causing issues in the aftermath or before math.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%. People are who worry me. And definitely I can't, and I think we're going to do a show on the best, the worst, the horror stories of actually investigating, not the ghosts. But it's terrible when these places bring you in, they give you all these humongous claims. And then basically in the end, if you don't, quantify or qualify those claims, then your team is shit.
And they give you a hard time. Yep.
Give me the next place.
Our next place on our photo list is Gettysburg.
Gettysburg. Okay, so Gettysburg is not a place I've ever gotten evidence per se.
It's just the feeling when you're there. You feel every dead body's weight on your shoulders.
Really and truly, Gettysburg is a place to experience, not prove. It's almost a place where why even bring equipment out to the field? I look. Gettysburg is where I got my start investigating.
Yeah.
And I took you guys there. I've taken Sandy there, been there, and we've gone into we're walking up the road near the wheat field, and you swear to God you hear clanging metal, and people breaking trees, walking through like troops would, and you're going into the forest, and you. I think what the thing is, and you know me, I like pragmatic terms, but frankly, Steve. Oh, okay. See, yeah. Look, I think everybody's had an experience in Gettysburg. The feeling is there.
I can remember even as I'm gonna say I was probably 5 or 6 when we went, and I still remember how I felt as a toddler. Essentially, I guess not a toddler, but a young child. I still remember the weight and how heavy just being in Gettysburg as itself, not even just on the field, just because we had left the hotel, we went into the store across the street, just being in Gettysburg as a whole felt like a whole weight on your shoulders. So
I know in the hotel I had night terrors of soldiers walking into my room because we had that big suite, and that freaked me out. I swear I woke up and saw it. Yeah, Robert, you're lucky. I got to go back. I've been there 11 or 12
I would love
times.
to go back. Now that I have a passport for the next 10 years, I don't have to go through any hassle of reapplying for one again.
I think it will be a happening. And we've had opportunities to go back. It just hasn't materialized. But when I got my start, I got my start there not because of ghost hunting. Even though I had grown up in the spiritualist church, so I've always been kind of around the goofy stuff.
Right.
I went there because my sensei lived in Tawnytown, Maryland, which is
right around. Yeah, he had the cat towers and the movie.
No, that was David. That was in Bethlehem. I'm talking about Johan, who was in Tawnytown, and we would train, and I would go down and visit him a couple, weeks at a time for several years, and we would go to Gettysburg, and we were in a place near Spangler's Spring, but it was kind of like one of the museum off-roads, like an access to one of the facilities. And we were just sitting there, and all of a sudden we watched this. This is the first story, and I took, you guys there. There was a lantern, looked like a lantern coming down the hill, and then it started to get close to the car, and it was getting brighter, it was close. And all of a sudden it was like somebody had a muzzle flash from whether it's a breech loader or something like that in the car. A huge set of sparks went off. And then my sensei, who was driving, just, we were gone, driving like a bat out of hell with no lights on, which was pretty dangerous. And from that point in time, I was hooked. I was like, I have to get to the bottom of this, and that's why I started investigating. So Gettysburg really, I mean, there is quite literally not a spot in Gettysburg that I didn't get some form of feeling, whether it be positive or negative. You can smell it. It's right there. Next,
This is the Smith Falls Heritage House.
the Smith Falls Heritage House. So in that front room to the left, you see in that picture, that was like the waking room. So they would hold funerals there because this was kind of one of the richer places in town. Now, man, we sucked back then. Probably one of the first 10 investigations we did. So really, we're doing what I complain people do now, and that is we kind of take our cues from television shows and what inspired us, right? This is why I complain about shows that are crappy, because people get inspired to do it that way. But we were there, and I mean, we had crappy equipment then. Like our DVR was like a convenience store security camera that burned video directly to a burnable DVD. So we were going through DVDs left, right, center. It was really shitty. So I was there, and there was a funeral exhibit. As you know, I was going to get into the funeral industry. So I told everybody I'm going to do a solo in here. So I had everybody go outside, and they were all by the cars. So I'm good, say 200 feet away from all of them and inside the house. The house, by the way, which didn't have plumbing, it had a commode like you do number 2 in a closet on a wood seat, and it would go like, I don't know, 40 feet down into a cistern or something.
Yeah.
It was gross. Not us. I didn't do that, but that's what would happen. So I'm in the room, and I've got a bunch of embalming supplies and a couple coffins. One of the coffins is like I'm sorry, I'm boring you.
No, I'm pregnant. Give me a break.
So there is a wicker body basket, right? This is for picking up the yucky bodies, right? Where they've been out in the sun, gotten a little pecked away, and a tad disintegrated. So it was for that. So I'm in there, 3 coffins in front of me, and there's like a chaise lounge behind me. I can feel kind of a brush of wind past my face, and I'm like, very good. I'm going to sit down at this chair here, and I'm going to talk to you. If this was an indication somebody was there. And I felt a depression on the chaise lounge next to my butt. Very good. So I continue to talk. And then on the body basket, the coffin lid falls off and lands on the ground. I'm not a runner. I'm not a shocked person. I've seen some things happen that don't faze me. At that point in time, Dave was phased. I got up and bolted out of the room and threw my shoulder out, slamming it into the door frame. And I'm running down the hallway. All right, Robert, talk to you later. And I ran down the hallway, and then I realized, shit, security camera's going to catch me running. What's the team going to do? Because it's one of the first things I say when you join this team. Don't run, because you cause everybody else to have that mob mentality, and then everybody runs and gets killed.
Yep.
And then, as soon as you turn around, that's when the boogeyman is there. Right? But it doesn't matter as long as you're faster. Problem being is I'm 5'5", my legs are this long, and I'm not the fastest one. So I'm going to get eaten, right? Guess what happened to the DVR footage that night? The DVR didn't work. So it didn't catch me running down the hallway.
Well, there you go. Can we go back to this place? Is it torn down?
No, it's still there. I've never tried. That's in Smith Falls.
Well, we were just in Smith Falls, weren't we?
We were in Perth.
Yeah, but Perth and Smith Falls are near each other.
Yeah. So, do you know what I probably would do is, now that Jenny Ferris is back with the team, she's very well worded. I could probably give her to set that up.
Because like for me, like I consider that local, like because that's something I could drive home that night from. Because like Perth's only 2 hours from me, and you know, whereas like Larignal and SJJ are like 4.5, 5 hour drives. So like I don't want to drive home after that. But
I'm pretty sure we could set something like that up. And frankly, I think we did it twice. So you know, we got a bit of history there. Yeah.
All right.
That was like one of the first real good scares.
All right. That's Dan.
That's Dan. Now,
why are his eyes blue is my question.
I think that was, we were using film cameras.
It looks like it. It does look like it.
Yeah. So that was just a situation.
This was a Hunter Street home.
So the Hunter Street home. Now, nothing haunted about this place.
Where was this? Like, where is Hunter Street?
If it shocks you, Pembroke. Say investigation number 3.
Okay.
We get invited to go to this home. This is a horror story, not a haunted story. We get into the home, and so the people are upstairs, and they're high as shit. Like, they're all smoking it up.
Great time to invite everyone over.
Good timing. Thank you. We bring our equipment in. We're thinking this is it's an investigation. We've been invited here. It's like number 3 investigation. So you're going to take anything. And because you just want the experience, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, they're getting high, and they've decided to start jamming.
Nice. As one does when people are investigating.
Guitars, thank you very much. This reminds me, we need to have a show on the horror stories of
or what to do and what not to do when people are in your house investigating.
Well, yeah, I guess they're one and the same. Because we've got a lot of horror stories. You know, hopefully if Shani watches this, and ask her about looking up to a man in his see-through boxer shorts eating an ice cream, looking down into the basement at us.
Yum.
We'll just take that from there. There was a lot of like these little horror stories. But this one was the first horror story.
The OG Chaps horror story.
OG Chaps horror story. So like they're upstairs, they're playing guitar, they're getting high. We're in the basement. We're setting up equipment. The lights are off, power's off. Like we've off the breakers. So we're in the basement, and it fucking smells, right? Pardon my French. But you know, we thought it's Pembroke, so it might just have that odor.
It's natural.
It's natural. We're having, you know, Dan at this point in time is starting to get a little sick, right? He's gagging.
He looks
getting ready. And Dan's like 91 years old, so he's tending to get a little sick. So then he's sick, and then you know I'm feeling a lot of crunch under my feet. That wasn't a beer; it's a bubbly. Okay. So we're getting crunchiness. There's a texture to the floor. So we're like, go turn the breaker on. Let's get these lights on.
Like crusty sock crunchy.
The entire basement. I'm not talking about a corner of a room. The whole basement is covered in kitty litter and poo. So what they do in the house is just shake the kitty litter around the basement, and the cats go down there with like the old shag carpet and shit, and pee and poo all over the basement. They've invited us and told us that the basement is haunted. Right. But they've invited us over there to investigate in their litter box. Right. So that was horror story number 1, and that will give you a bit of a preview as to 20 years of that.
Wow.
And there are many, many, many more. Right. So that was our first thing. And I can tell you that the entire team straight upstairs, equipment out the door. And I believe Shanna like just ripped into them like a razor blade. Like, you know, I was outside I was so hot behind the collar that, you know, they were like, we'll go take care of this.
That's insane.
The way it goes. So that wasn't haunted. It was horrible.
Horrible. All right. This is the Toronto Great Hall.
The Great Hall and the Theater Center. This was a weird spot. The actual place that we were to do the major part of investigating was the Great Hall, which is upstairs. Really, other than a glowing clown face, like an actual life-size clown in the stands that we kind of ran into by accident, which scared the shit out of everybody, was not really that interesting. However, downstairs, which used to be a YMCA, where Tom Longboat trained, there's a running track above it, and it had turned into the theater center. I remember one investigation. We were there a couple times. There was a human petting zoo where humans were dressed up as animals and people came in to pet them. Anyway, so we had some interesting things. But I remember that night, we stayed overnight. Shannon and I just couldn't sleep. We were on air mattresses. Everybody was pissed off because we were talking and they were all trying to sleep. Air mattresses up on the running track. You know, and the weirdest noises, and we're feeling things grabbing our feet. Shan is down by my feet. We're along the edge of the running track. So let's say Shan's a foot below me. About 20 minutes later, I hear her gasp. I look down. Her air mattress is like 15 feet away from me down the track. There was no sleeping after that. Both Shannon and I just sat up and talked all night long. Absolutely grumpy as sin by the morning time, by the time the lights happened. I also remember, if you watch the video, there was a period in time during the night where it sounded like a ship's anchor landed on that running track and got dragged. It was so shocking. We literally went out for about a half an hour cigarette break, like out the door. You know, like everybody was, we were still investigating, but you know how people they're not paying attention anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, it got to the point where I'm like, okay, let's go outside, have a couple butts, and calm down before we go back in there. Mm-hmm. In which case, at that point in time, things were fairly calm. But a great place. I've tried to get back in there. I've emailed them, never gotten a response. Obviously, different owners. That was the same place that, if you watch our outtake reel, which can get a little vile, Rob DiVincenzo, mm-hmm. Of course, Rob, the only person that could be a klutz at every investigation, found the only carrot one would find on the floor in a theater to trip over, and tripped over a carrot.
A carrot.
Just a random carrot in the middle of the theater. So maybe there really was some spiritual activity there and they were messing with us. We've done a lot of theaters. Downtown Toronto and some places. Some are really lame, some are exciting.
All right. Next up is the Undisclosed Legion.
Oh, this place we did 2 or 3 times. And you're right, I can't say where it is. It's a Legion, and this Legion had a 3-floored apartment above it that hasn't been touched since 1920s. They store shit up there, but I mean it's still very much like it was in the 20s. Mm-hmm. They had a handicapped daughter that they kept up there and wouldn't let people know existed. So we had done this place, and this was back in the day of Donalda. Mm-hmm. So we're going back to 2005. We did that place, and the second place, the first time we did that place, Sandy and I were locking it up. Everybody brought the equipment down. Both Sandy and I were headed down this, because you have to go up a set of stairs and down into kind of the bar area, mm-hmm. museum. And we heard, bye. Audibly. All these, both, Sandy and I both turned, and it was like an emotional, and I'm not this way, but it was like an emotional wave just flew up and smacked us both in the face, right? So much so that Sandy and I, in the next investigation, went out and purchased a teddy bear to bring up there and leave behind for
Boo Bear. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't Boo Bear. It wasn't a trigger. No, we actually bought a teddy bear to leave for good. For whatever child it was. It was probably really the first time we had an emotional connection to a place, I'd still go back. And like, that's one of the themes I'd like to do one of these years, is to go do some of these heritage investigations. We did back in the beginning. Now that we're a much more learned team, it was great. Like, to hear that, probably the only time I've ever like really heard a complete voice, and no denying it. And Sandy, again, is not a reactive person, and you can ask her if she could tell you the story. So,
jeez. All right, we've got West Virginia State.
Wow. Look, what couldn't you say about this place? Moundsville, West Virginia State Penitentiary. We've done it a couple times. Like, I mean, besides the fact that we did it with other teams, so it was a great collaborative effort and a lot of fun. Maybe a little bit too much drinking at the hotel both times. Man, I remember Sandy and I were doing a role play. Like, you know, I was pro jail guard. She was pro criminal. And we were in the A wing. I think it's the A wing, North wing. Anyway, I've been some years since I've been there. It was all caged in. You got to realize. So we're in the compound. It's like, say, 3 floors high, but there's like fence caging around us, top and around us, so that we can't get up there. Mm. So we're yelling back and forth. Sandy and I are getting pretty animated. As you know, I like to get really animated with the role play. Mm-hmm. And I'm defending the guards, right? Like, I am defending their right to just beat the prisoners to piss, right? And she's up and down. All of a sudden, I'm getting hit in the head, like with rocks, which are coming from, you know, the levels a couple above us, which there's no access to. And then we're hearing things running up and down these steel walkways up there on the range. But yeah, getting pinged in the head. And then, you know, I'm calling Kevin, who's in the way other end, over the radio. And I hear this scream. And yes, we have it on video on one of the Moundsville investigations. I'm like, Kevin, who was that? He goes, what are you talking about? He's like, it's just me and one other guy standing here. Right? But I can hear screaming coming over our 2 ways. That was cool. And then, you know what I mean? Like, it was a very, and then. So we're upstairs in the psych ward, and we're just talking about the story where a guy had forked out another guy's eyes, right? And we're hearing this, like, I mean, but there's steel stairs that don't have concrete. So all you hear is the pinging of steel stairs getting closer. What the hell's coming up, man? This thing has got to be the size of a giant. And then Shanna, at that point in time, screams, just a blood-curdling scream that took my soul apart. And then like a fleet of bats, like about 10 of them, flew through the psych ward. And that was enough to send a few of them outside. Really, really interesting place. Very cool.
Sounds like it.
You know what? Like, I got to be honest with you. I would go back, except for the fact it's like $10 trillion, and it's, you know, it's so much investment when it comes to the drive and the hotel and whatever. I do it again. I would do it again.
It sounds like something you could do again. Mm-hmm. So next, I have the. I'm not gonna.
You better take that off.
Undisclosed location.
I'm going to let you speak to this one then. It's an undisclosed location in northeastern Ontario.
I had a great time. This was, I think, one of the only investigations Brandon came on, and it spooked him, I think, just because he had never really done an investigation and really didn't have much exposure to it. There was a few different points. Like, overall, the general like vibe of the location was nice, and like, but like there was just certain areas that you just like, when we were upstairs, in one of the areas of the building, you couldn't tell if it was you or the floor moving. Like, it was very unsettling. Myself, you, and then was it John? John,
Yeah,
we were
it was like,
standing there just talking away. Brandon's watching the DVR downstairs, and like again, like you're just standing there, and it almost feels like you're on shrooms or something. Like you are, something is moving you, and like you just feel unsettled. And then when we went downstairs into more of like a colder area of this building, I was on audio, and we actually have the audio clip of it. Unfortunately, we can't share it, but we have the audio clip, and all you can hear is come right through, and none of us have made a sound at this point. So Brandon's standing there, Sandy's standing there, you're standing there, and I'm standing there, and like no idea where this sound has come from. And I really wish we could have shared our results with it, because it was super awesome, especially because that was Brandon's first investigation, for him to be like, oh my God, like, where did that come from? Who knows? And we don't get to do that. But I still love doing it. It was a pretty cool investigation, especially because of the fact that we drove so far for it, that I'm glad that there was some merit to it, because like, this past weekend we drove, Perth, the Perth Trail was awesome. It was cool, but we drove, you guys drove 3 hours and everyone else drove about 2 hours, to just be like a cool spot.
yeah,
so,
urban exploration is what it was.
So
yeah, absolutely. And you're right that northeastern Ontario spot, you know what, it was like standing on a trampoline on that top floor. And you're right.
You felt so uneasy. Like, you're like,
it was a cool spot.
You're like, I'm not moving myself, and I don't think the floor is moving, but something's moving between us.
Certainly, I'm going to add that. Well, I don't know. I guess I'll talk when we get to that as to one of the horror stories of doing an investigation. The potential was ridiculous.
I know.
Crazy.
So the next one on my list is Oakwood. So that's me in the Pikachu hat 4 million years ago. That would have been Oakwood 2015. So I just like that because that was my first investigation. So I wouldn't even say it was like the best stories, but it was my first investigation. I remember I was used as bait that night because the family, super kind, they had a nonverbal autistic child who had been referring to a woman's name that no one knew in the vicinity. No one at the school, no one at daycare, no one knew who this woman was, but this child, the only word this child had been saying was this woman's name. And so I was used as bait that night, and I was sent off into this room alone to talk to said child, because I was a behavioral child as a child, and although
you had similarities.
I wasn't nonverbal, but yeah, I had similarities that made me kind of a good candidate to chat with someone who might struggle with verbalizing themselves, which someone who nonverbal would be. And so she would keep saying Sarah, Sarah, and like no one knew who this Sarah was. So I just remember being sent alone into this bedroom and just like shitting my pants because I was like 14, I was 14 or maybe 15. And I just remember being so panicked because we had driven out to Oakwood from Oshawa, and they're like, all right, here you go, Fiona. So I just remember that being a really cool investigation. I remember the claims in that house were hearing a lot of banging in the stairs, a lot of walking in the stairs in the middle of the night. And yeah, I just remember like feeling so weird. This is also the same house that they had, I think they had like a gecko and a frog, and Dave was not happy about it. He did not like to be in that room. I actually don't know even what the results of that investigation were, because post me leaving there, I wasn't on the team back then, but I was brought for funsies. So
I don't know that it was particularly active in the end. We did their place a couple times.
Yes,
they had us up for steaks and all kinds of stuff. First time I ever drove an ATV in my life. I'm like,
yeah. So what I've been told, yeah.
But you know what, and we're still in contact with them. I'm still, like many of our clients, I'm still friends with them on Facebook, and I still talk to Darren, Darren and Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they don't live in that house anymore. They're in Lindsay, Ontario now. So maybe we'll do that.
But yeah, so I just like that one just because it was my first, and it's my first real exposure. And then I threw the Rignal on here. The Rignal is just fun to do because we know the air, like we know the building so well, even though we've only been there, I think 2 times now, but just because I did a lot of solos at the Rignal. That's kind of a lot of my exposure to solos. And having Elliot there was awesome because Elliot knows the history of the building so well. So being able to know exactly where we were, in certain areas and be able to speak to kind of the history of each area. But the story that goes along with the Rignal is I was telling, I think John this on the weekend, but we had brought Wes from Cops with us, and he he knows how to project himself extremely loudly. And many of you are probably not shocked. I'm short and small in stature, so I'm not someone who can take, some freaking out at. But they all went to have a butt outside. I don't smoke, so they left me alone in a locked jail cell after what basically shouted to the entirety of Lorignal about, because again, he's a correctional officer, so using a lot of that language that they possibly could have been exposed to, when the Rignal was functioning. And so, so again, they've left me. I'm alone in this cell after he's now just, startled the entirety of Lorignal jail. And I have a walkie with me basically as like an emergency. I lasted, I think, 3 minutes. The unsettling feeling of the fact that he has just woken up every spirit inside of the Rignal while I'm all alone in this building. I'm like, someone come let me out of this, please. And I'm not usually one to be easily scared, but it was just how uncomfortable I felt because I couldn't let myself out. I was locked into the cell. So I was like, it's either I do this or I sit here and cry in a corner trapped in the back of the cell.
Wes can definitely change the mood of a place real quick.
Yes. And I almost remember feeling like something brushed by me, which I think is what exaggerated the eerie feeling. Like I just felt something near me and I was like, I need to get out of here.
I will say about Lyric now, that we've done it twice now. Mm-hmm. If you want to see, as far as I'm concerned, a good masterclass in role play, the last time we were at between him doing that, me and you fighting in and out of the cell,
in the visitation
set, and then upstairs with Wes and I screaming back and forth. I'm sure the neighborhood hated it.
Oh, I'm sure it was. I still remember because I was in the cell next to you guys when we were up in the, where all the murderers had been held. And I was in the cell locked and I felt fine locked in a cell as long as there's other people in there. Because then they were also feeling it. But being locked alone in a cell left
on the
whole building.
On the actual video, a lot of that role play that Wes and I did back and forth didn't make it to our video that was published. Because, of course, Wes and I were very expletive with our words for a good 20 solid minutes and saying, I can't produce a video. It's just you and Wes screaming back and forth.
Mouthing off to each other.
I had a great time. I felt so therapeutic, being able to yell and scream for that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think when we're on the right side of upstairs, I'm trying to remember who was jailed over there. But I remember like a bunch of the solos to do with Elliot and you. And like, I remember just sitting on the floor. I was either standing or sitting, and where that little freaking high chair is. And you just feel this uncomfortable vibe as you and Wes go back at each other. Yeah. See, Elliot, I'm not alone in this. It gets creepy up there, because then when we were both locked in the cells, and we're talking about scary things, and it's like, holy shit. And like, and you're on camera, so you're just feeling even more vulnerable. So that's why I like the rig now, because it has a really good history to it. And honestly, like the actual experiences I've felt there make it more worthwhile going back to. I like going back to SJJ for the same reason, even though it's a billion-hour drive. There's always something eerily feeling. I do not sleep a wink at SJJ ever, because
I love SJJ, honestly, and that may be, again, another topic which I'm going to bring up. Like it's definitely one of my. We've done over 500 investigations now. SJJ is definitely in my top 5.
I love it. I think it's great, and I think because it's so massive that you can't do the same thing twice. Like you can do the same thing for evidence purposes twice, but it's like you never experience anything boring. There's always something happening. Mm-hmm. And even if it's something that's not even intentional, like the night we told one of the owners they could turn the spotlight back on at 3 a.m. I don't know why the hell we decided that was a smart idea, because it turned on at 3 a.m. and it scared the shit out of me after I just fallen asleep, because we had just ran into a bunch of it's not teenagers, they were drinking, but younger 20-year-olds at the bar, and they knew what we were doing. So I was worried they were on the property screwing with us. So I woke Shani up and was like, Shannon, like the lights are on. She goes, it's fine. They're supposed to turn on. I'm like, why did we tell them to turn the lights on at 3 a.m.?
You know what? They weren't, because the lady, Brent's wife, went down to the basement with me and shut the exterior light off.
She set the timer to go back on at 3.
Was it 3?
Yeah. So okay. That's why when I checked my phone, I was like, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Why are these lights on? And I woke up Shannon, who's deep in sleep, and she's like, what? And I was like, the lights are on. And she's like, that's okay. They're supposed to be. I'm like, at 3 a.m.? So, but I love SJJ. And you're right, Elliot. Like, the history is awesome. You do feel it, and it's such a massive place. Like, even in the hallway, just walking through the hallway, you feel something. The whole building just has like a heavy weight to it.
Oh, yeah. We're going to be back there. We'll be back there.
Yeah, I like doing it. That's what I like about investigating, is that every place is different. The vibes are different everywhere. You can understand like the similar vibe, but like everything is different. There's a few investigations, like Hinsdale, for example. It was definitely different one because we were cold. But like there was no merit to it, like I got bored.
All fabricated claims as far as
I was bored being there. And yeah, Elliot, repetition is key. Keep going. And like that's
you set a trend, right? That's the idea. Because like at the SJJ, 2 out of 3 investigations, we got the same evidence in the same place with the same stimulus, the same voice, the same everything. So I want it. Like, I don't care if next time we go up to the SJJ, if it's just 3 of us, I don't care. I want to develop that trend. And frankly, sometimes when you get your hands on a place that is that welcoming to you and you get that good relationship, you want to employ upon that. Brent's a super awesome guy. Mm-hmm. So do we have another?
No, that was all of it. I wanted to get my piece.
We only have 5 minutes left.
I know, we chatted away and we got lots of information in there.
This was like till 2011. All right.
Yeah, and then some bit more.
We're probably going to get a part 2 that, could be a lot, potentially longer, shorter. It'd be more interesting because we'd have more pictures and stuff to back it up. But we'll see when we can jam into that. And
I think we will slow down over COVID, so probably up until like 2020 we'll have a lot. But then I think over COVID, we probably only did, oh my God, like things really slowed down over COVID. So
they did. We're going to have some great stories still. And then we're going to have an episode. I'm hoping that, I don't know if we'll do one in December, but if we do, I think it's going to be my best of, worst of. And then we'll do one of the horror stories one. that should be good for a couple more episodes. So the next episode, looking forward to into a Thursday in November, we're going to do the second part of the best of stories. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I know it wasn't a huge crowd, but you know what? It was a great crowd, right? We're getting a nice, stable audience. And as you, of course, my daughter, that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah. I think, we're good. Yeah, we're done. And we got lots of information.
Lights on in an investigation.
We can do lights out on the podcast. Yeah, lights on.
What is it, lights out or lights on?
Well, lights go on at the end of the investigation.
Okay, well, my lights are already on in my office here. Your lights, however, are off in your living room.
No, my lights are on.
Well, it doesn't look that way. You have very bad lights. They're not good for your eyes.
I have a very annoyingly stupid shade cover for my light. Yes, you're correct.
Right. I don't think the people want to hear us talking about our lights.
No. So lights on. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next month. Bye.
Next time, guys. Bye.